Today we're taking a look at PolyMaker's PolyLite PLA, their budget solution to quality filament. Filament came in a very nice branded cardboard box. Inside we found a nice little slip with some printing instructions and the spool of filament sealed in a vacuum sealed bag, as all filament should. And on the side of the spool itself, we also had the same printing instructions as on the pamphlet. The spool is okay. I like how it's clear, but what I really don't like is how it's unbalanced. There's less plastic on one side of the spool than the other because of these holes, and that means that on the printer it won't be perfectly balanced, so it'll be harder in certain times to pull the filament out than others. Come on guys, this isn't that hard. All you had to do is put an extra hole there. Anyway, one interesting thing about this filament is the finish. It is one of the most unusual PLA finishes I've ever seen. Something closer to a glow-in-the-dark filament. It has a very, very gritty feel, not anywhere close to smooth. It's got a pretty normal PLA stiffness, not more brittle or less brittle than any other average PLA. For the first print, I chose my Maker coin model. The Thingiverse link to this will be in the description if you want to print one out yourself. That print turned out pretty good. The interesting thing about this filament is that the surface finish of a top or bottom layer is shiny, whereas the side layer finish is a matte finish. Very interesting. I did have a bit of warping here, but that is definitely the cause of an old build tack sheet, not the filament. Next, I printed this Om-Nom model, which I think turned out really good. I'm really liking the finish of this filament, and while there are a few layer inconsistencies along the back, but overall I think the model printed pretty well. Next, I printed this posable elephant model, which unfortunately kind of failed because the trunk did disconnect from the build plate during the print, but I wanted to see what the dimensional accuracy of the filament was, and I thought this was a good test. As you can see, the hinges on this elephant work absolutely beautifully, and it takes a truly accurate filament to be able to print in place hinges this good. And this print turned out spectacularly well. I'm not sure if spectacularly is a word, but now it is. It's probably one of the best prints I've ever gotten off of my specific printer, and I think the finish looks absolutely amazing. One thing you'll notice is that this finish has a much shinier finish than all my previous prints, and that's because I printed this at a much thinner layer height. I believe this was printed at 0.12 versus the rest were printed at 0.24. This is much thinner layers, which gives you a much smoother finish, but also a bit shinier. And while I like the matte finish, I think it's really cool that this filament can perform equally well between matte finishes and shiny ones. So, final thoughts. Does PolyLite PLA live up to its name? Well, actually, this is just the box. It's actually in the printer. But to answer the question, I think it definitely does. For a budget filament, it performs quite amazingly well. One of the coolest aspects of this filament is that you can actually change the finish of the prints depending on how you print them. If you want a glossy finish, then print in thinner layers with higher temperature, and if you want a more matte finish, print in thicker layers and a lower temperature. There's not really much more to say about this filament. I think the texture on the roll is very interesting since it doesn't have the same texture once the parts are printed. My printer definitely had no problem actually printing that gritty feel of the filament. Didn't hurt my printer whatsoever, and it extruded just fine, so I don't think you have to worry about that whatsoever. Now, PolyMaker did send me this filament free of charge to review, but any opinions in this video are my own. And trust me when I say I would not be afraid at all to totally sock a filament if I didn't like it. But I kind of like this filament, so. If you'd like to purchase this filament for yourself, down in the description there is a link to the Amazon page where you can order several different colors. I'm Josiah, thanks for watching. Yeah, this is a different shirt if you didn't notice. It's actually not the same day. Well, come on, it takes a while to print all this stuff.